Welcome to TK Q&A, questions and answers about transitional kindergarten. My name is Amy Moser. I'm the Universal Prekindergarten Coordinator for the Kern County Superintendent of Schools. And this podcast was developed to support administrators and teachers as they implement transitional kindergarten within their districts. Today, our guest is Megan Gretona. She is the School Readiness Manager here at KCSOS. Megan, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Amy. My name is Megan Gretona, and I am the School Readiness Manager for Kern County Superintendent of Schools. My other role is I am the CPIN lead for Region 8, which is Kern County, San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara, and Ventura counties.
Okay, lots of counties. And what does CPIN exactly do?
CPIN is a statewide organization divided up into 11 regions, and our main priority is to provide professional learning on the preschool transitional kindergarten learning foundations.
Okay, so what our format is here, Megan, is everything is a question and then we provide an answer, right? So we get lots of questions at the UPK team about implementing transitional kindergarten. And so one of the questions we've gotten a lot is, are there standards for transitional kindergarten? Are there standards for TK learning? And so you're going to be our answer person today. So are there standards for transitional kindergarten?
Well, yes and no.
Okay.
So yes, there are standards, but we do not call them standards. They are called foundations because these are foundational skills and knowledge that children acquire in quality programs before they reach kindergarten.
Okay, so difference between standards, a little more formalized, foundations, a little less formal, still important, but not as structured, would you say, as, I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for, but they're a little bit different than what you would find in a traditional standard.
Yes, so standards are typically skills that children have to reach by the end of the year in traditional grade levels, whereas in TK, we don't expect every child to attain every skill by the end of the year. They're on this developmental continuum, they're a developmental journey, if you will, and they're acquiring skills and practicing them all along the way.
Okay. So if I were to open the foundations, if I'm an administrator or a teacher, I'm looking at the foundations, what am I going to find in the foundations? How is it laid out? What does it look like?
Well, first of all, there's 9 domains, and they are laid out now in individual chapters, which can be downloaded on CDE's website. But there's 9 domains. There is also an introduction and an at-a-glance chapter that have been added. There is a new learning domain, approaches to learning. We're really excited about that one.
Okay, I want you to give us the domains though, because I think it's important for administrators and teachers to hear like the breadth of information that they'll find, that the foundations cover a lot of territory.
Absolutely.
So
there's
what can
approaches to learning, social emotional development. There is language and literacy, math, science, health, history, social science, visual and performing arts, physical development. So we cover every content area.
So that's a lot of content in those foundations.
Yes.
So tell me about how they would be broken up. So are they laid out in a rubric? Are they laid out with mastery skills? How does that work?
They're actually laid out in age ranges, or so we have the early foundation, which goes from 3 to 4.5, and the later foundation goes from 4 to 5.5.
Okay, that's important that they're
Yes.
starting young.
Yes.
So tell us why is it important that they're starting at that 3-year-old level?
Well, because children are now, TK is being expanded. Next year will be the full year of implementation. So children can be in TK at 4 by September 1st. So children, this is the youngest they'll ever arrive at the public schools, ever.
So 3 years, 11 months, really. And we
Yes.
know that even if they turn 4 on September 1st, they're still essentially 3.
Yes.
they're very young coming in.
Yes.
So it's important that these foundations are covering a timeline for children that's going to support the age range that's coming in.
It's a developmental range, and because now the foundations have been updated to include TK in the title, that was one big change, and the age range was expanded because now children that are served in a preschool program or family childcare or TK all are served by these foundational skills, right? So we have to kind of back up the age because all children are on this developmental journey. All children are not doing the same skills and have the same knowledge, so all 4-year-olds don't know all the same things. It's based on the experiences they had before they came to you.
So the foundations initially were written and developed by the California Department of Education for preschool age children.
Yes.
And then once TK became universal, meaning that all districts were going to be offering it, universal transitional kindergarten, and the age range started to lower, CDE realized we need to be inclusive of this age group as well, because we're serving a 4-year-old as a 4-year-old, whether they're at California State Preschool or they're in TK or they're in a family childcare home. So we need some common ground for foundational learning. So CDE then changed the title to include transitional kindergarten.
Correct, because before this, it just said preschool learning foundations, and so TK programs didn't really think that these foundations applied to them, and so they really they ignored them a little bit because they're like, oh, preschool's on the
Right.
cover. So we're saying, no, 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 these are for you too, but it made it very difficult to have those conversations. So CDE listened to feedback from the field, and I feel like they worked really hard to update the foundations with some newer research, get them more current, more focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So it was a good thing. We loved the title change.
So you talked a little bit about a developmental continuum. You've said that a couple times as we've been talking. So the foundations, when teachers are implementing this in their classroom or looking to their foundations to structure learning, we're looking at a developmental continuum. So talk a little bit about that in terms of the foundation and how children learn.
So really, the developmental continuum from birth to 5-year-old, we like to look at it that way because this is a journey children begin on when they're born. And so with all sorts of things happening, experiences, 90% of that brain development happens before the child even reaches kindergarten. So for the lifespan, that brain is being built with those early experiences. That's why they're so important. So I like to say that every conversation, every interaction, every experience matters in early childhood because it either shapes or builds a new neural network or strengthens an existing neural network in their brain. So I like to call early childhood teachers brain architects.
And those are TK teachers too.
Yes.
They're considered early childhood educators
Yes.
as well because they have young children in the classroom, brain architects at
Yes.
this age. So when those brain architects are implementing this into the classroom and we're talking about trying to meet the foundations, because that's a struggle teachers have and the pressure administrators have to be sure that the content is being covered, right? That they're meeting their standards, but foundations, right? That they're meeting those foundations. Teachers have to implement that in the classroom. So when they do, it's not a traditional block of learning like you might see in a schedule in a first grade or a second grade classroom where we have ELA time and we have math time and then we have this. How is TK and the foundations, how is that different when you implement that in the classroom?
Well, we really look at the foundational skills and knowledge that all children need to acquire before kindergarten, and then we kind of build the experiences, the learning experiences around that. So we integrate the curriculum. So we use developmentally appropriate materials. We set up our environment so that every single thing in the room that they touch, they're learning. And so that all day long, from the minute they wake up till the minute they go to sleep, a young child is learning. And so when teachers realize the gravity of what they do, they can really explore how to set up their classroom, the materials they can use to promote early learning experiences through everyday routines, transitions, and high quality, engaging, hands-on play.
You said a little bit about integration, so let's talk about what does that look like if we're implementing a standard, or a foundation. Can you give me an example of a foundation that might be implemented in the classroom and how that touches multiple foundations at the same time? So when we talk about integrated learning, how does it carry through different foundations at the same time?
So if I was setting up a math activity at a table, maybe I would want them to sort or classify some small little manipulatives like little teddy bear counters or bug counters. That is essentially a math activity. But also when they're at the activity with their peers, they're using their social emotional skills. It's physical development, it's fine motor. They're using language to communicate to their other peers and the teachers. So essentially what every activity that we do is using multiple skills simultaneously. So we don't teach skills in isolation. Everything's integrated. So no matter what we're doing, we're hitting on multiple domains simultaneously.
So as teachers are implementing those standards and the children are engaged in those activities, the foundations allow for them to maybe assess multiple skills at the same time. They can see that children are meeting multiple foundations and plan for them to meet multiple foundations at the same time.
Absolutely. And we can do it in fun and engaging ways. So I could have a painting activity and I could be assessing for their social skills, their communication skills, their fine motor, their grip, how are they holding the writing tool or the paintbrush. So through all these hands-on play experiences, I can drive forward our foundations, but also assess at the same time by standing back and observing them in their play-based learning experience.
So you said play-based learning, which is a huge piece of TK and what our UPK team, which you are a part of as the school readiness manager, you are another piece of our UPK team supporting teachers out in the field. We have been talking a lot about play-based learning with teachers and kind of moving away from so much direct instruction and allowing children to explore and kind of investigate learning, which meets that new approaches to learning domain within or foundation within there. So how does play-based learning fit into the foundations? Are the two, do they work together? Is that the expectation? Is that the thought that play-based learning should be happening with the foundations?
Yes, so CDE has been forefront saying these foundations are promoted through developmentally appropriate practices, materials, and through play-based learning. So we're thrilled that we get this support from CDE. So districts, it's really kind of different for them because they're used to teaching a discrete skill and kind of assessing for that skill in certain ways. And so we're kind of flipping this around a little and we're saying you can do all that through engaging play-based learning. And so sometimes when people walk in the room, they don't always see learning happening through their eyes, but really there's a lot of activity. The teacher can design centers, they can have engaging storytelling happening, a dramatic play with a little playhouse and a table and dress-up clothes. think about all the skills they're learning through that. So we really want early learning to keep the play in it, and we even want to promote that into kinder and first grade as well. So it is different for districts, so they're not quite sure how to organize that. So that's where we come in. We can support them in learning how to set up a classroom so it meets those expectations.
So that was going to be my next point, is that if I'm an administrator and I'm listening to this podcast and I'm like, okay, I've heard about the foundations. Now I know the answer to my question. Are there standards? Yes, there are, but I don't know what to do. Now, what's my next step? How do I support my staff? How do my teachers get this information? What should I be doing? What kind of support do you offer?
Well, I can provide the professional learning on the preschool, transitional, kindergarten learning foundations, or PTKLF, as we like to call them. So I do professional learning on those, and then our team, we support districts with on-site support and more professional learning.
So once again, Megan, you, in your role here at KCSOS, you are the school readiness manager, but a large part of your responsibility is as the CPIN lead for the region and helping to implement and provide professional development around the foundations, the preschool TK learning foundations all across Kern County.
Correct.
Okay, so how would administrators access? Are these online? Are the foundations available for them?
They are live on CD's webpage. They can be downloaded, so they're hyperlinked, and we can provide the link for people. But each chapter, each domain has its own chapter separate, and they can download them and then use them that way.
So to sum up kind of your big three, because that's kind of what I ask everybody to prep when they come on, is what are your big three things that you would want administrators to know about the topic, and what would you want them to know about the foundations? You want them to know that children learn across a developmental continuum, that it's developmentally moving through TK, and those foundations are meant to provide them with foundational skills, but not necessarily mastery. Would you say that's one?
Absolutely. We say there is no below grade level at this age. They enter where they are, and it's not that they're not capable or competent, able to develop those skills. It's maybe they haven't had the opportunity yet. So that's where early educators come in. It's our job to provide those opportunities through play. And I want to talk a little bit, I forgot to say, when we say play, it's not that we're just throwing things on a table and just walking away. It's very intentional. Teachers think a lot about how they're going to structure the learning through play to meet those foundational skills, right? And how they're going to assess for that. But it's fun for the child.
Right. But that's your second,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
Developmental continuum for the foundations. 2 would be that children learn those foundations and experience the foundations through play,
Yes.
which that's a whole nother podcast, Megan.
Yes.
I'll have a whole nother episode on what is play.
Yes.
And then your third was that the learning in the foundations is to be integrated, not presented in isolation, but presented integrated across the different foundations.
Absolutely. So everything is happening all at once. And so you can just look at it as when I'm doing an activity, I'm going to be meeting multiple domains all at once. And so I can kind of relax a little bit and think like, I'm doing great here. And you can actually, the teacher can back up and observe more. Because once you've done your job in planning and setting up the environment, then the observation piece is your assessment. You're observing them demonstrate these skills and practice them over time. So they're not just done once, calling them back to a table. They practice throughout the year.
Right. So I'm going to say that the other thing, so you'll get 4 things that the
Yes.
administrators should know. The 4th thing they should know is that you are here to support them with this, that they have direct access to someone who has the knowledge of how these foundations/standards work in the classroom, how their teachers can be supported, how they can get more information. You would be the contact for that, so we can provide them with your information. Also, we can provide a link to actually access the foundations. And we also, as a UPK team, you have developed some cards, the What I'm Learning cards, that give teachers and administrators information about, like, if children are painting or playing with blocks or playing with Play-Doh, what are the foundational skills they're learning in those practices? You have the foundations listed on those cards. So we can provide that information to administrators as well.
Yes.
But the key is they need to reach out to you, and you're happy to come to districts to support this.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's it. So thanks, Megan, so much for joining us. We were excited to have you. Hope to have you back to answer another question for us. Thanks for listening.